of Mercy has provided a faith-based Catholic education to children in the South Hills. They offer an advanced curriculum, active arts, and full sports program with a Christ-centered experience. Mother of Mercy focuses on molding young minds intellectually, physically, and spiritually. Their goal is for children to become well-rounded individuals who are prepared for the next steps in life. Mother of Mercy Academy is located at the St. Gabriel campus, 5200 Greenridge Drive in the Baldwin section of Pittsburgh. They currently have an open enrollment period and can be reached at 412-882-3353. That's 412-882-3353. Mother of Mercy Academy, for faith, for family, for life.
If you're talking, they will hear you every single time.
Oh, we're getting killed.
Yeah, well, Kyle's not here.
How come?
Kicked off the team. Didn't Tim tell you? Kyle and some other kids got caught drinking beer in the park a couple of nights ago.
Really?
Yeah, zero tolerance. He's out for the season.
Come on, it's a first offense, right?
That we know of. But why should that matter? He knew not to drink. I've made it clear to Matt, that's what we expect from him. What have you said to Tim?
Nothing really. You know, a lot of kids try it at this age, so...
Yeah, well, a lot of kids don't try it too. I'm not saying that Matt's gonna be this perfect kid, but if I don't tell him what we expect and why he shouldn't drink, how's he gonna know?
You think kids that age really listen?
They never admit it, Bill, but they hear more than you think.
Talk. They hear you. For more information about talking with kids about underage drinking, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
Three Rivers Broadcasting and White Eagle Marketing attest to the opinions and offers expressed on the individual talk shows and programs broadcast on the station are those of the participants only and not necessarily those of the staff, management, or ownership of Three Rivers Broadcasting or its parent company, White Eagle Marketing. Callers to the programs broadcast on Three Rivers Broadcasting should know that their phone calls may be recorded and or rebroadcast.
All right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Corner Kick here on Three Rivers Broadcasting. My name is Alex Fidrashevsky. For the next hour, I'll whip around the world of soccer and talk about the beautiful game with you. I'm flying solo. Tonight, we got quite a bit that we want to talk about and touch on here, including our hometown team, the Pittsburgh Riverhounds, taking their third victory in 4 matches now, beating New York Red Bull 2 3-1 at the weekend. Good win for them on the road. We'll dive into that a little bit later on in the program. I think that'll be a good second segment, as it's important and it's good because they're our professional team here and they are doing very, very well this season, and they're now tied for first place with the Tampa Bay Rowdies going into a game with Hartford Athletic home at the weekend. So that's it's a big one on Saturday night, as Hartford is in de facto second place, technically third place because of the tie, but they can pull within 1 point of the Riverhounds. So we'll talk about that a little bit later on in the show. But I want to talk about the Gold Cup going on right now. The semifinals are set. You have Canada and Mexico, Qatar, and the United States coming up on Thursday. I've had a chance to watch quite a bit of the Gold Cup matches here over the last week and a half. Through the group stage, I caught a little bit of the group stage here or there. The last days of the group stage for each group I watched and saw some good matches. Once we get into the knockout stage, things always get fun. The quarterfinals this past weekend were, 2 of the games were okay, and then I thought 2 of them went as expected. Let's start with the 2 that were exciting. The Qatar-El Salvador match on Saturday in Glendale. Great crowd, warm up for Mexico and Honduras. Qatar comes out 2 goals inside of 10 minutes. And generally speaking, at that point, you're in big trouble. And they tacked on a third just after halftime to make it 3-0. Almoez Ali had 2 of those goals. He opened the scoring and then scored again in the 55th. And at that point, when it's 3-0, most people are ready to change the channel. El Salvador, though, to their credit, while their defense has been suspect throughout the last few years. They did do a pretty bang up job in the group stage. You know, they beat Guatemala 2-0, beat Trinidad 2-0, and lost to Mexico. But they fought back. They scored 2 goals in 3 minutes from Joaquin Rivas, who plays for FC Tulsa in the USL, and put him back into the game, but they just couldn't get the third one. And they had chance after chance. They had Qatar on the back foot for the last 30 minutes or so of the match. And they couldn't find the back of the net. They had, again, quite a few chances, just couldn't put one in. And JJ was texting me during the game, and he said, in this type of situation, he goes, I want them to get the third, but the odds of them getting the third are very, very low. And when you go down 3, it's tough to claw all the way back. They were able to get 2, and then they had about a half an hour, if you count the stoppage time, to get the third, and they just didn't have it in them. You have to crawl all the way back to get to within 1, and then to try to grab one more to push it into into the kind of over the line into extra time. They just came up a little bit short, and I think maybe combination of just not having enough going forward for them in the attack, and that leaky defense that just betrayed them early on in the match. And if you look down the roster, there really wasn't anyone else they could have brought in necessarily that was of an overseas type guy who's going to come in and break the game open. They could have gone to a guy like Nelson Bonilla in a traditional sense right now, but travel's kind of crazy, so maybe they didn't want to bring him in all the way from Thailand, and he's 30. So they went with who they could get. And they showed themselves pretty well, again, in the final 30 minutes against Qatar, who's a rising nation in soccer. They've spent billions and billions and billions of dollars on their league, on the stadiums for the World Cup, on getting the World Cup, but that's a whole nother story. And they've worked for quite some time to get this done, and they also used naturalized players quite a bit as they built this, but now that's kind of gone down then, compared to where they were a few years ago. But they're good. They're pretty good. And El Salvador gave them all they could handle, and it was a good game. It was really entertaining. The first 10 minutes was entertaining because Qatar hit 2. They settled in, and the push from El Salvador in the second half made the match worth watching. The same night, you had Saturday night, Mexico took apart a bit of a depleted Honduras side. I think we can all agree that they weren't at full strength. Funes Mori opened the scoring. Jonathan Dos Santos, fine goal. And then Orbelin Pineda ended it, put it to 3-0 before halftime, and then it was just cruise control from there on. Canada, nice win yesterday against Costa Rica. They kind of went post to post on that one, and they really were dominant. Opening goal, nice touch by Junior Hoylett to open the scoring, and then Steven Eustachio provided the backbreaker on the 69th minute to push that to 2, and Costa Rica was done at that point. And this Canada team has a lot of young talent, kind of like the U.S. I don't think their depth is there just yet, but there's enough young talent in this Canadian team now, along with some grizzled veterans where they can make some noise, specifically come World Cup qualifying. Great result for them yesterday. They'll face Mexico on Thursday night, and then the United States victorious 1-0 over Jamaica. It was Matthew Hoppe from Schalke who got the goal on a header, 83rd minute, to break the deadlock and put the U.S. into the semifinals. So let's take the U.S. game specifically, because that's what we want to really focus on. Do you want to say it was a test for the B team, because this essentially is the B team that we have in the Gold Cup? I've talked about this now for 3 weeks, 4 weeks in the lead up to the Gold Cup, and the difference between the Nations League and coming into the Gold Cup, that you have essentially two national teams now. There's the kids who are in Europe, and then there's the kids and players who are still in Major League Soccer, the large amount of whom I think we saw last night will go to Europe. Players like James Sands, who just continues to improve game after game after game for the U.S. now in this Gold Cup. Miles Robinson, another one who just continues to improve. Sam Vines was great throughout this tournament so far. Gianluca Busio, it wasn't as great, yesterday, I think, but he's played well. Christian Roldan, who I don't think will ever leave MLS at 26 on a great contract in Seattle, played very, very well yesterday. But was it a test? So for this B team, yeah, it was a bit of a nail biter. Jamaica's scrappy, always gonna be scrappy. And they're starting to build some depth of their own now again, as Theodore Whitmore is the manager, one of their greatest players of all time back in the 1990s. And through the early 2000s, he played well over 100 times for Jamaica. Bounced back and forth between the Jamaican League and stints in the United Kingdom. I think his longest run there was about 3 or 4 years with Hull. He's the gaffer now, and he's been starting this whole movement again to go to England, find the guys who are of Jamaican heritage, and build a national team pool out of that, and then add in, this smattering of Jamaican players who are in Major League Soccer. Now, I usually bash on Americans playing in Major League Soccer, but for a Jamaican, it's probably a good move. It's a step up from their domestic league, and in many ways, it gives them access to training and things like that they wouldn't get playing in Jamaica. But Whitmore is starting to kind of morph this into that whole, hey, I found this guy from Rotherham, and this guy plays for Brentford, and this defender from Luton Town, and so plays for Bristol City, and they're all Jamaican by heritage, because you can go back a couple generations. Maybe their grandparents or their parents came from Jamaica. They're never going to play for England, but they could be very, very good for Jamaica. And so they're scrappy. They were a scrappy bunch, and I think that Berhalter probably learned a little bit about his B team, that in spite of their jitters, their chemistry issues, and the ref let a lot kind of fly last night, and Jamaica had no problem being physical, getting stuck in on challenges, no problem. And was it a good test to prepare a few of these guys who are going to jump into the A squad for World Cup qualifying? Yeah. And I think for a lot of them in this B group, it was good to see how they would respond to kind of a rough and tumble, knockdown, drag out, brawl down an alley outside of a bar type situation. And they were able to respond, and they were able to push forward, and they were able to, at the end of the day, break them down one time. And in a match like that, all you need to do is break your opponent down once. They were able to do it. I think it was good to see Hoppy get out there and get a goal. He was willing to continue attacking in spite of making a couple of mistakes out there. It wasn't perfect for the 20-year-old, but for another one of these kids who is kind of bound for that A group, and it was a weird start to his kind of professional tenure, as he started with relegation-doomed Schalke, playing in empty stadiums. The matches here in the Gold Cup have been the first time he's played in front of people, like in matches that matter. He played wide in the formation, but he was tough. He just kept going and going and going, a little like the Energizer Bunny. And I think it's also worth, again, mentioning the service from Roldan on the goal. He hit that very, very well. And there's a guy who I've kind of beat up a little bit over the last couple of years, is Giassi Zardes, where I don't think he's an A-team guy. I don't think Giassi Zardes is an A-team national team guy. He's not someone who you put in over the crop that's ahead of this group. I don't think that he belongs in there, especially at 29, especially furthermore in a starting role with all of these young, talented players that we have who can go forward. Is there a place for him in the team? He may have made an argument for himself in 27 minutes. He gave a little bit of a spark off the bench. And I think that, in a way, in a tournament like this, where you're going in with the B team, we know that the A guys have a ceiling. But it's important when you get into these kind of tournaments where you're going to use the second crop. You would, in many ways, want a few guys out there who have, I guess, a high floor, where you know what you're going to get. It may not be good enough for the next set when you go into World Cup qualifying, but for the task at hand, is it okay to use a few players like that? And that's where I tend to go back and forth on the idea that it is, in fact, okay to use some of these guys when you get into a situation like that. We're going to take a quick pause for the cause, and then I'll break down a little bit more of the U.S. match and what's to come here in the Gold Cup on Three Rivers Broadcasting.
The Guard Market is a digital marketplace that provides customers with access to licensed security professionals on demand. Let's face it, you have a lot to do running your business, and security, well, that's our business. We take the hassle out of searching, vetting, and scheduling private security guards for your unique needs. Just tell us what you need, when you need it, and we'll handle the rest. Guard Market security service partners are carefully screened and thoroughly vetted to meet the demanding needs of our diverse client base. Using advanced technology, we match you with the most qualified service provider based upon your specific needs and geographic requirements. For more information, you can visit our website at www.theguardmarket.com and call Andrew at 732-266-9344 with your service requests today. The Guard Market, security on demand.
Well, that's right. We'd like to thank one of our fine sponsors, the Guard Market here. Security professionals on demand nationwide. Visit them, theguardmarket.com. As I was saying, I think that there's a point for some of these guys to be in when you're talking about the B team. I've talked about A team, B team. So these guys fit. Zardes, and I've always liked Christian Roldan. I've always thought that Christian Roldan was one of those guys who could push his way into the A group, and I always thought Christian Roldan as a midfielder was one of those guys who has a place across the pond somewhere. But again, he's proven to be very, very good in MLS for Seattle, and he serves a purpose for the national team in a tournament like this, because I think his place in the A team is a little murky given how much depth and how much youth the United States is now pushing out, where we have a midfield that goes, potentially 15, maybe more deep. But he did the job yesterday. I think if you watched, you could see that he was able to get, because of the way they kind of inverted the triangle towards the right side of the Jamaican field, that Roldan had a little more room out wide. And it paid off, on that cross. And he did a good job. And the thing is now these guys, they're going to have to put in another shift of a different kind against Qatar. Qatar's not going to be as physical as Jamaica was. Qatar's not going to play as physical even as the Canadians were. It's going to be much more wide open. And this is the team for Qatar. A lot of these teams have brought in half of their regulars, some of their regulars. The case of the United States, maybe only one or two guys who will be in World Cup qualifying come September 2nd when the U.S. goes to San Salvador. Whereas this Qatari team that they're going to take on, they got everybody, and they're willing to let it rip. It's going to be a wide open game, I think. And they have quite a bit of chemistry that they've developed, as the vast majority of the players who start for them come from two teams, Al Sadd and Al Duhail, two of the bigger clubs. Al Sadd's the big one. They're the biggest one in the country. Raul had a run out with them. Xavi from Barcelona had a run out with them as well. So they've got a little bit of money to bring in those kind of players. And again, Qatar has spent billions and billions and billions of dollars prepping for this World Cup for the last decade. So they're going to have to step it up in a different way. It's going to be wide open. It won't be as physical. Now we're going to see how these guys respond in a game where a team's going to come at them and there's going to be opportunities to go the other way. Because El Salvador proved you can go the other way. So did Panama. Panama in the group stage when they went 3-3. Both showed that you can score goals on this Qatari side. But they're going to come down on you and try to hit 3 or 4. This will be Qatar's biggest test of the tournament. No doubt. And I think the U.S. back line is significantly better, even with this being not necessarily the A back line. This group is significantly better than what they've faced thus far. Matt Turner's played well in goal. He has three clean sheets in 4 matches. For those of you not familiar with the soccer lingo, maybe like Coach K, clean sheet's a shutout. So he's got 3 of them thus far in the tournament. And he's not been at this level before. So that's pretty good. This is Turner's really first exposure, and this is his opportunity to say, I'm the third keeper. And I think you have a bit of a fight now for that third spot. Is it him? Is it Ochoa? Maybe. There's going to be a couple of guys in that mix. But I think as of right now, the way he's playing, when we go into World Cup qualifying, Stefan Horvath Turner has made his case to be the third goalkeeper. Miles Robinson has played well from Atlanta United. In the center of defense. And 2 more good performances. Does the 24-year-old have a case to go abroad? Possibly. One player who has now overstated his case to be able to go, and I think there will be significant interest in over the next 12 months for, is James Sands, the 21-year-old Mr. Everything, if you will, now from New York City, NYCFC. He joined them at, I think he was 16 only when they came in 2017. He was the first academy player from up in Westchester County. He's from Rye, New York. And he's one of those guys who's pretty versatile. He can play defensive midfield. He can play center back. And with the injury to Walker Zimmerman, he's now had to step into that center back position. His decision-making's been fantastic. He can hit balls out of the back. I mean, he's doing it in a defensive midfield position. It's, he's sitting maybe 15 yards, 20 yards deeper, but he's still hitting those balls out of the back. He's willing to go get stuck into challenges, going at attackers to break up transition. He'll commit a foul. He's doing a lot of those little things right. You wonder if Berhalter will consider a player like Sands for the next crop. With the way he's played right now, he's one of those guys who I would, again, there's this short list of players that were in here that have impressed that are either on their way out or will be on their way out. There's a handful of them that have interest now. Sam Vines was one of them. I think it was Antwerp that's trying to put together an offer for him. Gianluca Busio is another one who now there's significant interest coming for. And James Sands will be the next one. Now, again, is this a guy who, as he moves on and moves out, is going to be potentially in the A group? He's going to have a darn good argument for it if this kid keeps it up. 2 more good performances like this. The offers should probably start pouring in this summer already. If not, it'll be next year. But in the next 12 months, maybe 13, because the window ends in September next year. The transfer window always runs into the fall, just a little bit. Right to, I guess it's still summer technically, but, it started September. And Sands should be one of those guys, and then that'll put him in that really would put him into the kind of the rarefied elite air with the rest of this crop that's up there, where it's your Serginho Dest and your Mark McKenzie's at Genk, and Brian Reynolds, Matt Miazga, Chris Richards, DeAndre Yedlin, Vickers and Brown. There's enough guys, and does he join that crop? He's played darn well, and I would say yes. And for me, the purpose of using the B team was exactly what we're seeing now. It's that their quality is there. These young kids, these guys who are, whether they're teenagers or early 20s, the quality's there. And the idea is to use this tournament, this kind of B tournament team as a showcase on the international stage, because they've done pretty well by and large, these guys in Major League Soccer. It's to showcase them on the tournament stage to get them to the next step. And the next step seems to be starting to come for some of these guys. Daryl Dike will be a no-brainer. I don't think you have to worry about that. Whether, somewhere in the next 12 months, Daryl Dike, he's gone. But, again, the U.S. is now in the semifinals of the Gold Cup. They have been in the semifinals 15 of 16 times. They've been to the finals 11, and they've won 6 of them. Mexico's won more. I think they've won 7 or 8. I think it's 8. Don't quote me on it. It's 7 or 8 Mexico's won. But a good, gutsy performance that the United States needed. It showed that they were coming together a little bit. The U.S., again, the U.S. dominated the possession. I think it was like 70% of it. And they won the better part of the challenges, probably close to 60% of them. Sebastian Lletget was fine. He's crafty. He's patient. Gets the job done. He's one of those guys who I've said, if there's an MLS player that belongs in the A group, it is Sebastian Lletget, who at 28 is not going to go back to Europe, especially with what the Galaxy are paying him. But it's going to be a different kind of game on Thursday. Like I said, the U.S. against Qatar, they clearly weren't here just to be the final team in the tournament. And if they won it, I wouldn't be shocked, especially because it's not the A team for the U.S. And yes, we could hang an asterisk on it, but I still expect the B team to defeat Qatar. Yes, it's their top team, and there's a lot of money that's been pumped into it. I still expect the United States to win that game. But for Qatar, they have the World Cup coming next year. They needed a tournament like this. And I don't think that the Qatari fans or even maybe the team have this idea that they're going to make some crazy run next year in the World Cup. Because you could get drawn in with, to pick. You could get drawn in with England, Brazil, and pick another, Ivory Coast, Nigeria, Ghana, Egypt, somebody, from Africa or the U.S. or whoever, and you're done. But they needed this to be ready to show that they can be respectable in a knockout tournament. They don't have elite world-level talent like these other teams do, but the fact that the other day they started 6 guys, it was 6 or 7 guys from Al Sadd, they play together every single week. They train together every single day. And they're familiar with each other. The runs they make, they're there. And it's enough where they're going to cause problems. And they're going to come at the U.S. It's going to be open, and I'm expecting a good game. Now on the other side, let's flip to the Canada-Mexico setup here. Canada's been steadily improving over the last few years. The win last night over Costa Rica, to me, could potentially signal a shift and a change in the order as far as the hierarchy goes. Because while Costa Rica didn't have all of their top players, neither did Canada. Canada was, in fact, missing their best players. No Alphonso Davies. No Jonathan David from Lille. Davies, obviously, at Bayern Munich. No Liam Miller. No Scott Arfield. Russell Tybert not in the squad from Vancouver. David Wotherspoon, who's kind of broken in at an older age, one of those dual nationals, St. Johnstone. There's a few players that weren't in there that probably would be in an A squad. And they took it to them, to Costa Rica. And they also lost Akinola, who suffered a torn ACL against the U.S. They were better at every facet of the game, at every position on the pitch last night. And I think it's a sign, a siren, whatever you want to say, that they're almost there. I think they have reached a level where they can regularly compete and qualify for the World Cup. Now, yes, it's going to mean less when they expand the World Cup. And Canada's hosting, along with the U.S. and Mexico, the first blown-out World Cup. So maybe it doesn't mean as much when you're only getting 3, and now you're going to get whatever it is, 5 or 6 out of CONCACAF, which is asinine. But we'll break that down as we get to the next World Cup. And the fact that I think the expanded World Cup is rubbish. Absolute garbage. Play for money, nothing more. And that's another topic for another time. The U.S. has got its golden generation, right? This next gold crop coming through. Canada has, in less numbers, but they've got their own group that's starting to emerge. They got Davies and David. Miller's in that mix. Akinola. Eustachio, who had the goal. Theo Corbono's another solid player for them, just 19 years old from Hamilton, Ontario. And for me, the most impressive Canadian player in the entire tournament, 22-year-old Tajon Buchanan, plays for New England Revolution. Buchanan's made a case for a transfer overseas. I think he has been their most electric player throughout the tournament. His play has steadily improved, and I think he hit a high point yesterday. They'll need him to continue in the game against Mexico on Thursday. You could probably say that John Herdman's met expectations, that the Canadian gaffer has gotten them to the semifinals of this tournament, and they've done the job. And they don't have all their top offensive weapons. They're going up against Mexico. They haven't beaten them in 20 years. If they can beat Mexico, and they're going to be missing starting center back Steven Vittoria and striker Lucas Cavallini. So they're going into this one a little shorthanded. And Vittoria, he's 34, but he brings the biggest wealth of experience in the back line right now from the highest level. He went through Porto's youth system, was contracted to Porto for a little while, played at Estoril in Portugal, moved on to Lechia Gdańsk in Poland for a couple of years as they were trying to build themselves into a contender there, and now he's back in Portugal. He's that rock in the back for them. We'll see who steps into that hole. That's going to be interesting to see. But somebody's got to step in and step up. Up top, losing Cavallini hurts a little bit, but there are still plenty of other options that they could go to. Junior Hoylett can always shoulder that load up top. And Tesho Akindele is, he's still there. He played a little bit yesterday. Did all right. His finishing in the final third for the national team is a little suspect, but there's enough pieces for Canada to at least make Mexico work. Mexico needed to get its confidence back. Honduras was the perfect team to take care of it. They missed a couple of regulars for the COVID protocols, whatever they're doing with that at this point. And Albert Ellis broke his toe. One of their top attackers. Did it make a difference? Probably not. If they had their full squad versus, would they have been able to kind of hang on? Maybe they lose 2-0 instead of 3. That's probably the difference. Tata Martino is just that good of a tactician too. He used this formation to drive his outside backs forward, drive his wings forward. Just puts so much pressure on the Honduras back line. They're beat up a little bit too. It was just a chance after chance after chance after chance for El Tri. And because of the way they kind of funneled this whole thing and bunched Honduras up in the middle, all their goals came after a cross from the wide area. So they did the job. They executed what he wanted to perfection. And Mexico looked the part of a team that wanted to win this thing. And they very well could. But I think Canada can certainly give them fits, and I think they will. Will they beat them? I don't know. It's just like Qatar. Qatar is going to give the United States fits on Thursday. in Austin. But are they going to beat them? I don't know. I still think that this USB team's got more than Qatar. And Canada will give Mexico fits, but I don't know if they beat them, especially without Cavallini and Vittoria. More so Vittoria than Cavallini. Because they can always, I think they have enough guys who they've brought in who can score goals even without the top guys there. The back line for Canada is their weakest point. And has been for 20 years, maybe longer. They can produce decent midfielders. They can produce great attackers. They have great attackers right now, actually. I think I'm going to classify that. That the Canadian attackers they're great. They have, for CONCACAF standard, they have excellent players going forward. Cavallini, Hoylett, Tesho, Larin, Buchanan, and then further on the guys, Io and Davies and David and Miller and all these other players now. They can get forward. They have two good defensive midfielders. I don't want to say they're great, but they're good. In Samuel Piette and Marc-Anthony Kaye, they're regulars now. The insertion of a player like Arfield still helps when they have him, but you want to see what you can do right now with some of these other guys. But Piette and Kaye are two of those. They're two solid players. The back line for Canada is still a mess. There's just not enough depth. I don't know why it is that the Canadians can't produce that type of talent in the back line. I look at the pool right now. I've got it up on, off of Wikipedia, where they have the player pool of everybody who's been called in the last roughly 12, 13 months. It's just not imposing enough. Is that maybe why they brought in a dual national, Frank Sturring? He played for NEC. Now he's at Den Bosch both in the Netherlands. But Den Bosch is in the second tier. So they're still not finding or producing center backs and wing backs to the level that they probably need to. And without bringing in players like Derek Cornelius or Sam Adekubi, who are over in Europe, there's just not a lot of depth in their back line, and can Mexico exploit that? If they play like they did against Honduras, they'll hit 3 against Canada. I think that goes without saying. So am I calling that my picks would be a U.S.-Mexican final? Probably. I think it's safe to say that the U.S. and Mexico are favorites to get there. Would I be at all surprised if it's Canada against Qatar? No. The odds are still in favor of it being clearly the U.S. against Mexico, but would I be surprised if it was Canada against Qatar and Qatar won the thing? No. We're going to take a quick pause for the cause, and we're going to come back and talk about the Riverhounds here on Three Rivers Broadcasting. It's the Corner Kick.
Steel City Grease Traps has provided professional wastewater removal services to the restaurant industry in the tri-state area for nearly 20 years. Steel City Grease Traps provides grease trap pumping, fryer oil removal, as well as drain, pipe, and repair services. Fully insured and licensed by the Commonwealth, Steel City Grease Traps is the service leader in Western Pennsylvania. Their work is their pride, and their word is their bond. Visit their website at www.steelcitygreasemanagement.com or contact them at steelcitygtsales@gmail.com. That's steelcitygtsales@gmail.com for Steel City Grease Traps for all of your non-hazardous wastewater removal needs in the tri-state area.
Experts say that the most important time in a young child's life is elementary school, and the lessons they learn from kindergarten through 8th grade form the foundation for the rest of their lives. That's where Mother of Mercy Academy excels. For over 70 years, Mother of Mercy has provided a faith-based Catholic education to children in the South Hills. They offer an advanced curriculum, active arts, and full sports program with a Christ-centered experience. Mother of Mercy focuses on molding young minds intellectually, physically, and spiritually. Their goal is for children to become well-rounded individuals who are prepared for the next steps in life. Mother of Mercy Academy is located at the St. Gabriel campus, 5200 Greenridge Drive in the Baldwin section of Pittsburgh. They currently have an open enrollment period and can be reached at 412-882-3353. That's 412-882-3353. Mother of Mercy Academy, for faith, for family, for life.
That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Please support our fine sponsors here at Three Rivers Broadcasting, including Mother of Mercy Academy, one of the finest Catholic schools in the Diocese of Pittsburgh, building strong foundations through faith at the St. Gabriel campus. They were established this summer, but again, a 70-year tradition at St. Gabe's. Principal Don Militzer, we'd like to thank him for working with us, and of course, the Diocese of Pittsburgh. Please support all of our fine sponsors. They're listed here at the bottom of our screen as we are live, as you can. And the best thing you can do outside of supporting our sponsors is, of course, pressing that share button, telling your friends, tell your neighbors, wherever it is. If you're on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, tell them to check out Three Rivers Broadcasting, and we are with you 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. Well, we're into the final segment of the hour, and we're going to talk tonight about the Pittsburgh Riverhounds, our hometown professional soccer team here. They are on quite a tear over the last, I would say 45, 50 days or so with when you look at the schedule and you see all kinds of green on soccerway.com, that's a good thing. That means you're taking 3 points, 3 points, 3 points. In their last 10, I think they've won 1, 2, 3. I think 6 or 7 out of 10. So it's a good run for the Pittsburgh Riverhounds. Scored twice early in the second half to put the Red Bulls away. Red Bull 2. Got to watch that one. Kenardo Forbes assists on the first 2. That breaks a tie with Kevin Kerr. He now has officially the most assists in the history of the Pittsburgh Riverhounds, and I'll be the first one to say it now because he's been with them for a couple of years, and he's doing a great job for them. He bosses the center part of the midfield. Should he be the first guy we try to build a statue to at the ground? There, I'll say it. Should Kenardo Forbes be the first Riverhound to get a statue at the ground? Let's throw that one on Tuffy Schallenberger, shall we? Start some type of wall of fame at Highmark Stadium. If I had to nominate some people for the Pittsburgh Riverhounds Wall of Fame, I would put Kenardo Forbes towards the top of the list. Kerr would be on there too, for sure. The Hounds got started pretty early, scored 10 minutes in. Alex Dixon got things going. Turned his defender, took the ball down the right wing, got control, created room for himself. Good finish from just inside the 18. Pittsburgh did a pretty good job pressing forward. Red Bull did get one back to level it from Omar Sow. But they came out well in the second half, Pittsburgh. Just 6 or 7 minutes in, I think it was 51st, 52nd minute, Cicerone makes it 2-1, 7th goal of the season. Cross from Forbes. Cut it to his left. Good finish past the goalkeeper. Not long after that, Vidiello comes up with a big save. And then a couple minutes later, Albert Dikwa gets his second goal of the year. And that proved to be the insurance goal. And then after that, it was time for a little Bob Ball. And the Riverhounds pretty much closed it down. New York had, I think, only 2 or 3 chances in the second half. But once they got the third, it was time to just toss on the defensive subs and lock it down like they do. And came away with another win. Is Kenardo Forbes the man of the match for me? Yeah. I've given it to him a couple of times now. I know that the Hounds officially, their website or whatever, the media man of the match hasn't been him, but I would vote for Forbes most nights. The goal scorers get the glory, but guys like Forbes or the play of Shane Wheat the last few weeks are what win you the games. Pittsburgh's home at the weekend, Saturday, against Hartford. They drew 1-1 the first game in Connecticut on May 15th. And with Hartford now on 23 points with matches in hand on both Pittsburgh and Tampa, who are tied for first place. Tampa has played 14. Pittsburgh's played 15. Hartford's only played 12. So they've got an extra 9 points out there. So it's an important match for Pittsburgh. Hartford's form pretty good as well. They've taken points in 4 out of 5, and they've won 3 of them. Including a 2-0 win over Miami to pull them level with Miami on points. So it should be a good one at the weekend. We'll be there from Three Rivers Broadcasting. And without doing too much of breaking down the table, you can understand why the Riverhounds need to look at this one and take 3 points, especially when Hartford's got 3 in hand. You want to keep that separation. Because if they close that gap in their 3 games as they make them up over the course of the season, all of a sudden first place could very quickly turn into third. And your home playoff game in front of 7,000 people in, October, November could very easily turn into a road game in Louisville or something like that, which you don't necessarily want. So it's an important one for the Riverhounds. You want to take points. Got a trip to Charleston again coming up after that. And then August 11th, they're home against Miami. So the next 3 home games for the Riverhounds, next 3 home matches are pretty important because it's Hartford, then they're home against Miami, currently tied with Hartford on 23 points, sitting just behind Pittsburgh and Tampa. And depending on how their next 4 go, the biggest home match of the season could be August 18th. It's a Wednesday night. And that's when Tampa comes to town. So you could be looking at a big one coming up in August. These next 3 are important home matches, and then they got tricky trips to Charleston and Charlotte. But the next 3 home games they're pretty big. But it's been a good season again. Bob Lilly's got them turned the corner. And I think it's safe to say the Riverhounds will be in a comfortable playoff position. It's just now making sure in the stretch in the final, half of the season here to maintain their form. And there's still a ways to go. Again, we're only about halfway through the season, but they've hit the midpoint and they're starting to peak. I don't think we've seen the best out of the Pittsburgh Riverhounds yet this year. We've seen a lot of good, but I don't think we've seen them truly maximize their potential yet. I think this past weekend we saw a little bit more of a step forward. That win over Loudoun while they won, and I said, hey, they got the job done. It was a fine performance. They did the job. It wasn't to the level that I think they or Bob Lilly was hoping it would be. And it's hard to hit too hard at a team that's sitting tied for first in the conference. But it's a team that is still, I think we're just starting to see reach their stride. And as the season tends to continue on, they will continue to get better. It always tends to go that way for the Riverhounds, and it's trending that way again this year. So hopefully you'll be down there at the weekend. We'll be there from Three Rivers Broadcasting. The U.S. plays on Thursday. And I think we've kind of about run out of time here on the Corner Kick. We only got 5 minutes to go on the show, so I want to again thank everybody for tuning in. Remember, coming up here, Steve Fox, Street Corner Doo-Wop on Three Rivers Broadcasting. After this, Holy Rosary at 9 in English, 9:30 in Polish. Old Time Radio in the overnight. We've got live polka tomorrow at 11 and 5. And at 6 o'clock, our specialty program, No Filter with Matt Simmons. There's on Three Rivers Broadcasting. If you like sports, join myself, Coach K, and Elijah on Wednesday for the Pittsburgh Sports Report. Jordan's on vacation, so it's guys' night. We're going to talk about what's going on, maybe a little ACC, SEC, Big 12 talk. I think we need to extrapolate what we could possibly see out of West Virginia over the course of the next few months. What happens if the Big 12 blows up? We'll talk about it on Wednesday. That'll be fun. But again, we'd like to thank you for tuning in. Please support all of our fine sponsors. We'd like to thank them. Report It, Carnegie Ironworks, Lawrence Repair, Paul across the hall, 412-391-2220. Pennsylvania Football News, the finest provider of coverage of high school football in the Commonwealth. We're going to be working with them extensively come this fall. Gym Rat Performance Training. If you have a son or daughter, niece or nephew who's a basketball player in Pittsburgh and wants to improve on and off the court, there's nobody better than Gym Rat. These guys are the best. College coaches for 15 years. They know what they're doing. They're working with players from Pitt. They're working with professionals. These guys know what they're doing. They're very good. Everybody talks about scholarship. You want to try to get your kid a scholarship and they want to work hard and try to earn a scholarship? Gym Rat is the place to go. Steel City Grease Traps. Hey, if you own a restaurant in Allegheny County, gone are the days where you can just scoop out your grease trap with a soup ladle, throw it in a black bag, freeze it, and put it in the dumpster. The solid waste companies don't want to haul that anymore, and they're going to find out who did it if they get some. And they're gonna tell the county. The county's gonna find out who it is. They're gonna come and they're gonna find you. Got to use a licensed company these days. So Steel City Grease Traps, one of the finest providers here in Western Pennsylvania. The Guard Market, security professionals on demand. If you need security, armed or unarmed, at your events or facilities across this nation, visit theguardmarket.com for more information. Of course, Mother of Mercy Academy. For faith, for family, for life, providing a fantastic Catholic education to the students of the South Hills for over 50 years at the St. Gabriel campus. I'd like to thank you all for tuning in. This has been Corner Kick for July 26th, 2021. Ciao for now. God bless. Have a great week.
Experts say that the most important time in a young child's life is elementary school, and the lessons they learn from kindergarten through 8th grade form the foundation for the rest of their lives. That's the Academy excels. For over 70 years, Mother of Mercy has provided a faith-based Catholic education to children in the South Hills. They offer an advanced curriculum, active arts, and full sports program with a Christ-centered experience. Mother of Mercy focuses on molding young minds intellectually, physically, and spiritually. Their goal is for children to become well-rounded individuals who are for the next steps in life. Mother of Mercy Academy is located at the St. Gabriel campus, 5200 Greenridge Drive, in the Baldwin section of. They currently have an open and can be reached at 412-882-3353. That's 412-882-3353. Mother of Mercy Academy, for faith, for family, for life.